The bouquet flew from Tara Lewis's hands as she stumbled on the uneven pavement, sending an explosion of yellow tulips and white lilies across the steps of the imposing brownstone. She lunged forward, grabbing at the flowers in a desperate attempt to save the arrangement, only to end up sprawled across the doorstep just as the massive oak door swung open. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Tara scrambled to her knees, gathering tulips with frantic motions, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She glanced up through a curtain of auburn hair that had escaped her hastily tied ponytail. Standing in the doorway, looking down at her with an expression of amusement rather than annoyance, was a tall man with broad shoulders and dark hair that curled slightly at his temples. He wore a charcoal gray sweater that looked soft enough to be cashmere, with the sleeves pushed up to reveal strong forearms. His eyes, a startling blue-gray, crinkled at the corners as he crouched down to help her. "These must be important flowers if you're willing to dive for them," he said, his voice deep and warm with humor. Tara felt her embarrassment deepen. "They're for a Mrs. Henderson, anniversary gift from her husband." She checked the address on her phone and then looked up at the house number. "But I think I'm at the wrong address. This isn't 287 Maple Avenue, is it?" The man shook his head. "This is 278, you're close though." He picked up the last lily and handed it to her, their fingers brushing momentarily. "I'm Preston Kane, by the way." "Tara Lewis," she replied automatically, trying to salvage the bouquet. The arrangement was ruined, tulips bent and lilies missing petals. "Oh no, this is a disaster. I can't deliver these now." Preston studied the damaged flowers. "I'm no expert, but that does look pretty sad." Tara bit her lip. "I'll have to go back to the shop and make another one. Mrs. Henderson's husband paid extra for rush delivery too." She checked her watch and groaned. "And I have 3 more deliveries after this one." Preston stood up, brushing off his knees. "Well, since I'm partially responsible for answering the door while you were mid-tumble, let me help." He pulled out his wallet. "How much for a dozen of whatever you think looks best, delivered here, of course?" Tara blinked in surprise. "You want to order flowers right now? Why not? This place could use some color." He gestured behind him to the elegant but somewhat austere entryway visible through the open door. "And it would help make up for your detour, wouldn't it?" Tara found herself smiling despite the situation. "That's actually really nice of you." "A dozen roses would be $75, but make it something more interesting than roses," Preston interrupted. "Surprise me, whatever you choose for yourself." He handed her a $100 bill. "Will that cover it?" "More than cover it," Tara said, tucking the ruined bouquet under one arm to take his money. "I can bring them by tomorrow if that works." "Perfect," Preston said with a smile that transformed his face from merely handsome to breathtaking. "I'll look forward to it." As Tara hurried back to her delivery van, she couldn't help glancing back. Preston Kane stood in his doorway, watching her go with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something about him stuck in her mind as she drove away, not just his good looks or unexpected kindness, but a sense that their brief encounter had somehow been significant. The next morning, Tara arrived at Blooming Wonderful, the flower shop where she had worked for the past 3 years, earlier than usual. She wanted extra time to create something special for her unexpected customer. The bell above the door jingled as she entered the fragrant space, already filling with morning sunlight. "You're early," observed her boss, Eleanor, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and hands that could coax the most stunning arrangements from even the simplest flowers. "Eager to get started today? I got an unusual order yesterday," Tara explained, hanging up her light jacket. "A man ordered flowers after I delivered to the wrong address and ruined Mrs. Henderson's anniversary bouquet." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "And this has you coming in 30 minutes early to what make him something special?" Tara felt her cheeks warm. "He said to surprise him with whatever I'd choose for myself. It's a creative challenge, that's all." Eleanor's knowing smile suggested she didn't believe that was all, but she merely nodded. "Well, we got in some gorgeous anemones yesterday afternoon, and the ranunculus are particularly nice this week." For the next hour, Tara lost herself in creating the perfect arrangement. She selected deep blue anemones with their striking black centers, pale pink ranunculus with their layers upon layers of delicate petals, sprigs of eucalyptus for their silvery green color and subtle fragrance, and accents of white hypericum berries. The result was sophisticated without being stuffy, romantic without being obvious. As she wrapped the bouquet in brown craft paper tied with a simple twine bow, Eleanor came to inspect her work. "That's one of the most beautiful arrangements I've seen you do," she said, touching a ranunculus petal gently. "This mysterious flower customer must have made quite an impression." "It's not like that," Tara protested. "He was just nice and I wanted to do a good job." Eleanor patted her shoulder. "Of course, dear, just like you just spent an hour on an arrangement that normally takes 20 minutes. Tara carefully placed the bouquet in the delivery van, setting it apart from the day's other orders. She had 4 deliveries before Preston Kane's address, and each one seemed to take longer than usual as her anticipation built. When she finally pulled up in front of 278 Maple Avenue again, she noticed details she had missed the day before. The brownstone was impeccably maintained, with window boxes waiting for spring plantings and a gleaming brass knocker on the door. The neighborhood was one of the most exclusive in the city, where historic homes had been lovingly restored and maintained, often at astronomical expense. Taking a deep breath, Tara approached the door with the bouquet cradled carefully in her arms. She had just raised her hand to knock when the door opened, revealing Preston in a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up and dark jeans. He looked like he'd stepped out of a men's fashion magazine, casual yet polished. "You came back," he said with a warm smile, as if her return was the highlight of his day. "I always deliver what I promise," Tara replied, holding out the bouquet. "As requested, a dozen more, well, more than a dozen, actually. I got a bit carried away." Preston took the flowers, his expression changing from polite pleasure to genuine appreciation as he examined the arrangement. "These are incredible." "I don't know much about flowers, but I can tell this is special. The blue ones are anemones," Tara explained, pointing. "And these are ranunculus. They're some of my favorites. They look a bit like tiny peonies, but they last longer. They're beautiful. Would you like to come in and show me how to care for them properly? I'd hate to kill something so lovely through ignorance." Tara hesitated. Entering a stranger's home wasn't something she typically did, but something about Preston made her feel safe. Plus, the door was wide open, and it was broad daylight in an upscale neighborhood. "I suppose I could give you a quick tutorial," she agreed, stepping into the entryway. The interior of Preston's home was even more impressive than she had glimpsed the day before. High ceilings with crown molding, hardwood floors covered with antique rugs, and a staircase that curved elegantly up to the second floor. But rather than feeling cold or museum-like, the space was welcoming, with comfortable-looking furniture and what appeared to be actual family photos on the walls. Preston led her to a kitchen that would make a professional chef envious, all gleaming stainless steel appliances and marble countertops, yet still somehow homey, with a bowl of fruit on the island and a cookbook open on a stand. "I was just about to have some coffee. Would you like some?" he asked, setting the flowers carefully on the counter. "I probably shouldn't," Tara said, glancing at her watch. "I have more deliveries." "Just a quick cup," Preston urged with a smile that was hard to resist. "I promise not to keep you from your work for long." Against her better judgment, Tara found herself nodding. "A quick one then, black, please." As Preston busied himself with a professional-looking espresso machine, Tara took the opportunity to study him more closely. He moved with confidence, his movements efficient and graceful. Everything about him suggested success and privilege, from his obviously expensive watch to the casual way he navigated his gourmet kitchen. "So, how long have you been a florist?" Preston asked as he handed her a cup of coffee that smelled heavenly. "About 3 years professionally," Tara answered, taking a sip and nearly sighing with pleasure. It was possibly the best coffee she'd ever tasted. "But I've loved flowers since I was a kid. My grandmother had an amazing garden and she taught me all about different varieties and how to arrange them." It shows, Preston said, nodding toward the bouquet. There's passion in your work, that's rare. What about you? Tara asked. What do you do? She was curious what sort of career allowed someone in their early 30s to afford a home like this in such an expensive neighborhood. I'm in investments, Preston replied, which Tara thought was deliberately vague. Primarily real estate development, but I have my hands in various ventures. Must be successful ventures, Tara observed, glancing around the kitchen. Preston smiled, neither confirming nor denying her implied question about his obvious wealth. I've been fortunate. Now tell me how not to kill these beautiful flowers you've brought me. Tara showed him how to trim the stems at an angle, how much water to use, and when to change it. She explained that the flowers should last about a week if properly cared for, longer if he added the flower food packet she'd included. And where would you put them? Preston asked. If this were your home, somewhere you'll see them often, Tara replied without hesitation. Flowers are meant to be enjoyed, maybe that table in your entryway or here in the kitchen if you spend a lot of time here. Preston nodded thoughtfully. The entryway, I think. They'll be the first thing I see when I come home. There was something in the way he said it, a touch of loneliness, perhaps, that made Tara wonder if he lived alone in this big house, and if so, why. But it wasn't her place to ask such personal questions of someone who was essentially a stranger. I should get going, she said, finishing her coffee. Thank you for this, it was delicious. Thank you for the flowers, Preston replied, walking her to the door. They truly are exceptional. At the door, he hesitated, then asked, would it be inappropriate for me to ask for your number? In case I need floral advice again. Tara felt a flutter of something in her chest, excitement, nervousness, anticipation. I don't usually give my personal number to customers, she said cautiously. Of course, I understand, Preston said quickly, his expression falling slightly. But, Tara continued, surprising herself, I could give you the shop number, I'm there most days. Preston brightened. That would be great, and maybe you could put your name on the card so I know who to ask for. Tara nodded, pulling one of the shop's business cards from her pocket and writing her name on the back before handing it to him. Their fingers brushed again, and this time she was certain the contact lingered just a moment longer than necessary. I'll be calling, Preston said, tucking the card carefully into his wallet. Count on it. As Tara drove away, she found herself smiling. There was something about Preston Kane that intrigued her beyond his obvious good looks and apparent wealth. He seemed genuinely interested in her work, in her as a person. It had been a long time since someone had looked at her with such focused attention. 3 days later, Tara was helping a customer choose flowers for a birthday arrangement when Eleanor called her to the phone. It's for you, Eleanor said with a knowing smile. A Mr. Kane. Tara's heart did a little jump as she took the phone. This is Tara. Tara, it's Preston Kane. The flowers are still looking beautiful, but I have a question. Would it be terribly forward of me to order another arrangement, this time for a dinner party I'm hosting this weekend, and to request that you deliver them personally? Tara found herself twisting the phone cord around her finger like a teenager. That wouldn't be forward at all. It's my job. Excellent, Preston replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Would Saturday afternoon work? The dinner is at 7, so any time before then would be perfect. I can do that, Tara agreed, pulling up the shop's delivery schedule on the computer. What kind of arrangement were you thinking? Something that would look good as a centerpiece, but otherwise, I trust your judgment completely. After confirming the details and ending the call, Tara turned to find Eleanor watching her with undisguised curiosity. So the mystery man calls again, Eleanor observed, and wants you specifically? It's just a centerpiece for a dinner party, Tara said, attempting to sound casual. Hum, Eleanor hummed skeptically. And will you be wearing those jeans with the hole in the knee when you deliver it, or perhaps that nice dress you wore to my birthday lunch? Tara laughed despite herself. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's known you for 3 years, Eleanor replied kindly. There's nothing wrong with being interested in someone you know, especially someone who clearly appreciates both your talent and your company. He's a customer, that's all, Tara protested, but even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. There had been something in their brief interactions that felt like more than a simple business relationship. "Well, whatever he is," Alina said, "he's good for business, and he makes you smile. Both are things I approve of." On Saturday, Tara spent far longer than usual getting ready for what was, ostensibly, just another delivery. She chose a simple but flattering emerald green dress that brought out the gold flecks in her hazel eyes, and she wore her hair down instead of in her usual practical ponytail. She applied light makeup, just enough to enhance her features without looking like she was trying too hard. The centerpiece she had created for Preston's dinner party was one of her best work, an elegant arrangement of white peonies, pale pink garden roses, silver dusty miller, and trailing ivy in a low, rectangular vessel that would allow dinner guests to see each other across the table. When she arrived at Preston's house, she was surprised to see him outside, apparently giving instructions to a catering van that was parked in the driveway. He spotted her immediately and waved, excusing himself from the caterer to meet her at her van. "You're right on time," he said, opening the passenger door for her. His eyes took in her appearance with obvious appreciation. "You look beautiful." Tara felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. "Thank you. I thought I should look presentable since you mentioned a dinner party." Preston smiled. "Well, you've succeeded admirably." He peered into the van at the arrangement. "Is that for me? It's stunning." "It is," Tara confirmed, carefully retrieving the heavy arrangement. "Where would you like it?" "Let me show you," Preston said, leading her not through the front door this time, but around to a side entrance that opened onto a spacious dining room. A long table had been set with elegant dinnerware, crystal glasses, and silver candlesticks, but the center of the table was conspicuously empty, waiting for her contribution. "This is perfect," Tara said, setting the arrangement in place and making a few minor adjustments. "The candle light will make the flowers glow, especially once it gets darker." Preston stood back, admiring both the arrangement and, Tara suspected, her as well. "You have an incredible eye," he said. "Everything you create is both beautiful and somehow exactly right for the space." "That's the real art of floral design," Tara explained, warming to a subject she was passionate about. "It's not just making pretty arrangements, it's creating something that enhances its surroundings and creates a mood." "And what mood were you going for here?" Preston asked, genuinely curious. Tara considered the question. Elegant but welcoming, sophisticated but not intimidating, it should make your guests feel special without making them feel they can't relax and enjoy themselves. "That's exactly the atmosphere I want for tonight," Preston said, looking impressed. "You understood the assignment perfectly," Tara smiled, pleased by his reaction. "I'm glad you like it. If that's all you need, I'll let you get back to your preparations." Preston hesitated, then said, "Actually, I was wondering if you might consider staying, for the dinner party, I mean." Tara blinked in surprise. "Me? But I'm not dressed for a dinner party, I mean not a fancy one." "You look perfect," Preston assured her, "and to be honest, it's not that fancy, just some business associates and their partners, 6 people including me, 7 if you stay." "I don't know," Tara said uncertainly. "I don't want to intrude on your business dinner." "You wouldn't be intruding," Preston insisted. "In fact, you'd be doing me a favor. These dinners can be so stiff and formal. Having someone interesting and creative like you there would liven things up." Tara hesitated. On one hand, it seemed unprofessional to accept such an invitation from a customer. On the other hand, she found herself genuinely wanting to spend more time with Preston. What time would dinner start? She asked, already mentally calculating whether she had time to go home and change into something more appropriate. 7, Preston replied. "But guests will start arriving for drinks around 6:30. You could stay now, help me finish setting up, and then join us. Or you could go home and come back, whatever makes you more comfortable." The genuine hope in his eyes made her decision for her. "I'll stay," she said, "but you have to promise not to make me talk about business investments or whatever it is you all usually discuss." Preston's face lit up with a smile that made something in Tara's chest tighten pleasantly. "Deal, and I promise these are actually interesting people, despite being in business." For the next hour, Tara helped Preston put finishing touches on the dining room and living room where guests would gather for pre-dinner drinks. As they worked, he told her about his company, Kane Investments, which specialized in ethical real estate development projects that revitalized neighborhoods without displacing existing residents. "It's a difficult balance," he explained as he adjusted a couch cushion. "Development naturally increases property values, which can price out long-time residents. So we've created a model where a percentage of any project must include affordable housing and where existing businesses are given preferential leases in new commercial spaces." "That's actually really admirable," Tara said, impressed. "Most developers just seem interested in maximizing profits." "Oh, we make plenty of profit," Preston said with a wry smile, "but I believe you can do well financially while still doing good. My parents raised me to understand that wealth comes with responsibility." "And are your parents coming tonight?" Tara asked, curious to meet the people who had raised someone with such principles. A shadow crossed Preston's face. "No, they died in a car accident 5 years ago. That's actually when I took over the company and started shifting its focus." "I'm so sorry," Tara said softly, instinctively reaching out to touch his arm. Preston covered her hand with his own. "Thank you. It was difficult, but I like to think they'd be proud of the direction I've taken things." The moment was interrupted by the doorbell. Preston squeezed her hand once before letting go. "That will be the first guests. Ready?" Tara took a deep breath and nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be for a surprise dinner party with millionaire real estate developers." Preston laughed. "Just be yourself. That's more than interesting enough." The evening progressed better than Tara could have imagined. Preston's business associates and their partners were indeed interesting people, intelligent, engaged with the world, and surprisingly down to earth. One couple ran an international architecture firm specializing in sustainable design, while another man headed a venture capital fund focused on green technology, accompanied by his wife, who was a marine biologist. Throughout the evening, Preston made sure Tara was included in conversations, often highlighting her expertise in flowers and design. She found herself relaxing and enjoying the company, especially when the conversation turned to topics beyond business: books, travel, food, art. What surprised her most was how naturally she and Preston seemed to work together as hosts. He would begin a story, and she would somehow know exactly when to chime in with a detail or observation. When she moved to clear a plate, he was already there with a hand extended to help. It felt like they had been doing this together for years, rather than hours. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed around midnight, Tara found herself alone with Preston in his kitchen, both of them leaning against the counter as the catering staff finished cleaning up in the dining room. "Thank you for staying," Preston said, his voice low and warm. "You made the evening so much better than it would have been otherwise." "I had a wonderful time," Tara admitted. "Your friends are lovely." "They liked you," Preston said. "Marcus, the venture capital guy, asked me how long we'd been seeing each other. He was shocked when I told him we'd only met a week ago when you delivered flowers to the wrong address." Tara laughed softly. "We did seem to fall into a rhythm, didn't we? Like we'd known each other longer." "Exactly," Preston agreed, his eyes intent on her face. "It felt right having you here." The air between them seemed to thicken with possibility. Tara was acutely aware of how close they were standing, how easy it would be to close the small distance between them. "It's late," she said, reluctantly pushing away from the counter. "I should probably call a cab." "Let me drive you home," Preston offered immediately. "It's the least I can do after you saved my dinner party." Tara hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, thank you." The drive to her apartment was quiet but comfortable, with Preston asking occasional questions about her life and listening with genuine interest to her answers. When they arrived at her modest apartment building, he insisted on walking her to her door. Outside her apartment, Tara turned to thank him for the evening. Before she could speak, Preston gently took her hand. "Tara," he said, his voice serious now, "I want to be clear about something. I didn't invite you to stay tonight just to have an extra person at dinner. I invited you because I wanted to spend more time with you," Tara's pulse quickened. I wanted to spend more time with you too. Would it be all right if I kissed you goodnight? Preston asked, his eyes searching hers. In answer, Tara stepped closer, tilting her face up to his. Preston's kiss was gentle at first, a soft press of his lips against hers, but when she responded by sliding her hands up to his shoulders, he deepened the kiss, drawing her closer. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Preston rested his forehead against hers. I'd like to see you again, he said. Properly. A real date, not just you delivering flowers or helping me host a dinner party. I'd like that, Tara replied, feeling a happiness bubble up inside her that she hadn't experienced in a long time. Tomorrow? Preston asked eagerly. Or is that too soon? Tara laughed. Tomorrow is good. The next several weeks passed in a whirlwind of dates and discoveries. Tara learned that Preston was an early riser who loved to swim laps before work, that he had a weakness for spicy food, and that despite his wealth, he drove a practical electric car rather than a flashy sports car. Preston discovered Tara's passion for botanical gardens, her talent for cooking, and her endearing habit of talking to her houseplants when she thought no one was listening. They went to art exhibitions and hole-in-the-wall restaurants, took long walks in the park, and spent rainy evenings curled up watching old movies. Through it all, their connection deepened, each finding in the other someone who understood them, challenged them, and made them laugh. 3 months after their first meeting, Preston invited Tara to spend the weekend at a beach house his family owned on the coast. As they walked along the shore at sunset, hands intertwined, Preston suddenly stopped and turned to face her. You remember the day we met? He asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. When you delivered those flowers to the wrong address, Tara smiled at the memory. How could I forget? I was so embarrassed. I knew the moment I opened that door and saw you there, surrounded by scattered flowers, that you were someone special, Preston said, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. I didn't know how or why, but something in me recognized something in you. I felt it too, Tara admitted. That's why I spent so much time on your arrangement the next day. Eleanor teased me mercilessly about it. I still have the card you wrote, you know, Preston said. The one with your name on it. I kept it in my wallet. Really? Tara was touched by the sentiment. Preston nodded, then took both her hands in his. Tara, these past months have been the happiest of my life. Before I met you, I was successful, but something was missing. My house didn't feel like a home. My life was orderly but not joyful. Tara's heart began to race as Preston dropped to one knee on the sand. You brought color and life into my world, he continued, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Just like the flowers you create, and I don't want to imagine my life without you in it. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a cushion-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones in a vintage-inspired setting that perfectly suited Tara's taste. Tara Lewis, will you marry me? Tears of joy filled Tara's eyes as she nodded emphatically. Yes, she managed to say. Yes, Preston. I will. As he slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that rivaled the most beautiful flower arrangements Tara had ever created. 1 year later, Tara and Preston were married in the garden of their new home, a charming house with enough space for Preston's home office and a small flower studio for Tara, who had opened her own boutique floral design business with Eleanor as her mentor and partner. The wedding was intimate but exquisite, with flowers everywhere cascading from archways, floating in the pool, adorning every table. Tara had designed each arrangement herself, pouring all her love and creativity into transforming the space into a flower-filled paradise. During their first dance as husband and wife, Preston whispered in Tara's ear, "Do you know what I'm most grateful for in the world?" "What?" Tara asked, looking up into the face of the man she loved. "That you have a terrible sense of direction," he replied with a grin. "If you hadn't delivered those flowers to the wrong address, we might never have met." Tara laughed, wrapping her arms more tightly around his neck. "Then I'm grateful too, for my navigation failures and for your spontaneous flower order." "Best money I ever spent," Preston said, kissing her softly. A dozen flowers that brought me the love of my life. As they danced under twinkling lights and a canopy of flowers, surrounded by friends and family, Tara thought about how life's mistakes sometimes turned out to be its greatest gifts. A wrong address had led her exactly where she was meant to be, in the arms of a man who saw her, valued her, and loved her completely. And every year on the anniversary of the day they met, Preston would order a dozen flowers, a different variety, each time to be delivered to their home. A reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life begin with an accident, a wrong turn that turns out to be exactly right.